Hey there, Stoane here with Woodstone. Today we're going to be talking about how to hang cabinets. It's not one of those things that's overly complicated with a few key concepts. Been doing this for a long time. The main concepts are you want to be attached to a stud or a quality drywall anchor. You want to attach the cabinets to each other, and you want to hide the fasteners inside the cabinet so they're not seen by the end user. So first we'll qualify this video with, we're not going to be doing a whole bunch of work actually inside of the cabinet, because if I were to try and get all these tools and myself in the cabinet, you wouldn't be able to see anything with a camera. So I'm going to point and touch inside this cabinet a few things. Then I'm going to show you outside of the cabinet, both here, and then we're going to cut to a wall to show you how to put up a drywall anchor. But I want you to be able to see all this stuff. So that's why we're not doing it inside of a cabinet. So first things first. Where do we put the fasteners when we're putting this thing on the wall? So I like to, you want to think about where is the line of sight. So if this were a base cabinet, meaning it's on the floor, a great spot to put screws is right up here underneath the top, because you got your countertop here, right? So when this is down on the floor and you're here, you know, your countertop's waist height, nobody's going under to look up and see those screws. The other spots that can be good is right behind face frames when you're screwing these together, or you can pull out the hinges and put it behind the hinges, or sometimes depending on like a Euro style hinge, you have that bar that comes over here, you can put it right behind that bar, you don't have to pull out the hinge. Another good spot is you can put finish head screws inside shelf pin holes. They're just about that size, and it's really easy to hide those. So on the upper cabinets, a couple of good spots to do it. If there's room underneath, meaning there's a little bit of overhang, right on the bottom in the back into the wall is a good spot to do it, because your eyes are here, so it's going to be underneath there. Another good spot is in the top going into the wall, because again, it's way up here. On the outside of the cabinet though, if you put it on the top, on the inside of the cabinet, that's the easiest spot to see it, right? Another good spot is right above the bottom in the back, because again, for a lot of people, it's right, if you're taller, you can see it, but if you're shorter, you're not gonna see it, and also there's usually a bunch of stuff right there. Another good spot is right above the adjustable shelf, which is typically in the middle. This one's a little bit lower. This cabinet was made by my students, we keep it in the shop. So this one had a bunch of stuff in it, I just pulled it out for this video, but right above that cabinet, or the shelf rather, or behind the shelf. If it's an adjustable shelf, you know, they might move it later, but in my experience, if you center that, highly unlikely that they're going to move it. So now we'll go to, that's where you locate the screws. Now we'll go to how do you put the screws in so that they're hidden. And the trick there is a countersink. So this is normal woodworking. You want to use a countersink with a pre-drill. This has a tapered pre-drill on it and a countersink attached to it. You can have these separate. This is a setup that I usually use. So I'm going to drill into white here so you can see what that looks like. Then you're going to put your screw in there, and then you're going to get what's called a Fastcap. These ones are wood. I specifically picked out wood, and I'm putting it on a white background so you can see what that does. But if you have a white interior cabinet, you can get these just about any species as far as I know. You can get it all the PVC laminate colors that you need, and they even make a kit so that you can punch out your own out of veneers if you want to, or laminates if you want to. Fastcap is the name of the company and the product. Then once you have your screw in, you put that there. Now, if it's wood grain, you want or has a pattern on the laminate, you want the grain or the pattern to be of your Fastcap to be going the same direction as the grain or pattern inside the cabinet. That way it kind of camouflages there. Fastcap also makes another bit that makes these flush mounts so they don't stick proud. In my experience, not usually necessary on the interior cabinets, but if you're doing an open cabinet where you're going to use this kind of fastening system, you can use that. It's basically a countersink that only goes the exact width of the Fastcap and the exact depth of the Fastcap. So you would countersink your screw, then you would countersink with that, and then you put your Fastcap on there and it sits flush. These are all, can be a little bit overkill for most applications, but sometimes you end up with those like glass face cabinets that you couldn't hide the attachments on, maybe like French cleats or something along those lines, which is another way to hang cabinets, but this is the way that I do it most. That's a great way to hide all of that. Now we will switch over to the wall to show you the drywall anchors that I like to use if I can't find a stud. Okay, so now we're over at our mock-up wall. It's just a wall in my shop. Again, I don't want to be buried in a cabinet while I'm trying to show you this. So most walls for residential purposes are going to be 16 inches on center for your stud. So we have a stud here. You can use a stud finder. I like the ones that find the edge, and they're going to be 16 inches on center. So you'll notice on your tape measure, every 16 inches is red. That's for stud layout. So we have 16 inches on center for these two studs. I like to mark the outsides of them just because it's easier. That came from running crews. This eliminates the question of where do I put the screw? If you put one line up there, well, is that the center? Is that the right? Is it the left? Just get rid of all those questions. If I'm going to install a whole kitchen, it's completely naked and it's primed usually. They usually don't paint it. I'll go through, find all my studs, mark them, and then I'll take a 6-foot level and just draw a line straight up and down so I have it for my base and I have it for my uppers, okay? In commercial applications, a lot of times they're gonna be 24 inches on center. The reason for that is most commercial buildings are they're a structure that has room. The walls in the center are generally just there to hold up drywall and run mechanical through, so your electrical, plumbing, all that stuff. So it's not really holding up anything. The overall structure of the building is holding itself up. The walls generally are just splitting up tenant spaces in a commercial application. So your studs are going to be 24 inches on center in that scenario. So try to get it into a stud when you can, screw the cabinets together, and then when all those are screwed together and screwed to studs, you effectively, let's say you put 8 cabinets on the wall for one elevation, you basically took 8 pieces and made one big cabinet that's all screwed together and screwed to multiple studs. Okay. In scenarios where you can't get a stud, you want to get a quality drywall anchor. So these are flip toggle. I grabbed these at Home Depot. But what this does, each one of these kits comes with the bolts that work with it and the toggles. And the way that these work is this folds down, okay? This folds down and goes through the hole. In this particular one, it's a 1/2-inch hole. If you read the back of the box, it'll tell you what size screw you need, or drill bit that you need. And then you're gonna push this through, and then it pops up behind the drywall. You pull that tight, you push this piece, so you've pinched the drywall there. And then when you put the screw through, it pulls, this basically just holds that in place until you get the screw in there, and then this becomes the bolt that sucks into the drywall. And you can see, these are the 3/16. On drywall, it holds up 106 pounds. So you get a couple of these in a cabinet, you're more than fine for what that cabinet's gonna hold up. I've had these in law firms where they're holding up books, so paper is really heavy. I've also had this holding up wine cabinets. These are really great, and you want to make sure that you spend the money to get a quality drywall anchor. The other thing that I'll say, when you're putting these in, make sure you buy many extra. Now I've been doing this for a long time, so I break off less of them than I used to, but I still break them off. If you've never used these before, they tend to want to break off and then this falls down the wall. So if you need 4, don't buy 4, buy 10. They're handy to have around, and then you're not making a bunch of trips back and forth to try and get these. So fold that up, work it into the drywall. Now see how I can pull that like that? Hold the end, push that in, pull everything tight, feels good. Snap that off, and then this goes in, and in this case you would lay it out in your cabinet, put the hole in like I showed you earlier, and then our screw, sink that in, and it cinches up and holds the cabinet up. Now you got all these screwed together. Hopefully some of them are in studs, some of them are in drywall anchors, and it's more than enough to hold up your cabinet elevation. So on the base cabinets, I do the same. You just don't need as many screws because it's sitting on the floor or on toe kicks, so you're not holding up the weight, you're just holding everything to the wall. So those are the basics of how I hang a cabinet. Now cabinets are one of those things that there's a lot of weird scenarios. You might not have a wall that you can screw to. You might not have other cabinets that you can screw to. So you're gonna have to use your best judgment. will actually get everything mounted, especially on uppers, and pull on them to make sure that there's no movement. That's kind of cheap insurance to make sure when they load these things up, it's going to hold. You want to find out before they load them up that it's not going to hold. And there's a bunch of different ways to do that. Another tool that you might want to check out, I'll put a link in the description for it, is what's called a third hand, also made by Fastcap, and that helps you hold up your upper cabinets while you're screwing those in, so that it can become a one-person job instead of one person holds while another person is putting the screws in. Just another handy tool to have around. So if that helped, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a good day.